Fab, thank you, Kerry. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for this session. I'm just going to get the slides up just now, and then we'll kick off the training. So as Kerry mentioned, this is a session all about linking literacy in STEM through the Read Write Count campaign. So some of you might have heard of that before. If you have heard of Read Write Count, or if you've heard of Scottish Book Trust, could you pop in the chat, just say yes so that you have, or no that you haven't. And as we say, we're from Scottish Book Trust. So I'm Rachel, I'm one of the school communities managers at Scottish Book Trust, and I'm responsible for outreach. And I'm joined today with Maggie, who is the school communities manager for all things Read Write Count. So I'm responsible for all of the bag design, the distribution of the bags, and all of that programme development there. So if you've heard of Scottish Book Trust before, you might be familiar with some of our programmes already, like the First Minister's Reading Challenge or BookBug, or you might know of Read Write Count. But basically, we are a national independent charity that works to improve the lives of everyone in Scotland through reading and writing. But our school communities team, which Maggie and I work in, we work specifically with children and young people aged 5 to 18. So we support schools, libraries, community groups, anyone that's working with these groups of young people to help support a love of reading and develop reading for pleasure in schools. So as part of today, we're going to be talking a little bit about what Read Write Count is, first of all, what the campaign's key aims are. It's been going for a number of years now, so you might have come into contact with it already, but we thought it would be worthwhile just going through a kind of overview, what the programme is, why it was set up, and what the kind of key messages are. We'll also have some information on what's in this year's bags. Very excitingly, they're actually just about to go out into schools very, very soon. So you're going to get a sneak peek of what's to expect in this year's bags. We're also going to look at what resources are available to support STEM education. So if you're going into schools and you're supporting schools with Read Write Count, we've got lots of resources and inspiration for gifting events that can help you with your work with schools. Then the second half of today's session, we're going to have a wee break after that, and then the second half of today's session will involve linking stories in STEM a bit more generally. So that'll be talking about top tips for reading books aloud and getting the most out of them when you're using books with schools as part of your kind of sessions with them. And there's lots you can do with one book as well. And these Read Write Count books that we're going to be talking about today are a great place to start. So even if you're not kind of confident using books or reading them aloud, the fact that you'll have the Read Write Count books today to kind of take away with you with the activities, that'll be a great starting point for you. We'll also give you some book recommendations to take away linked to various STEM themes as well, because we know a lot of you will have different interests and different subjects in STEM that you're particularly interested in or particularly confident in. So hopefully we'll be able to send you away with some book recommendations to explore after the session as well. So first of all, Read Write Count, what is it? How did it come about? It's a campaign by the Scottish Government, and it's delivered by Scottish Book Trust and supported by Education Scotland. It focuses on the importance of families, parents and carers in their children's education, and it aims to give advice and materials to help families get involved in their children's learning as well. So as part of the campaign, every child in Primary 2 and Primary 3 receive a free bag with books and activities to support their learning. And in addition to this, the campaign provides advice and support for learning professionals and families through Scottish Book Trust in the form of training events like these, online resources and useful advice and guidance too. But it basically comes from the Scottish Government's key aim and commitment to raise attainment for all. So a key part of the campaign is, of course, kind of parental and family engagement with children's learning. And I'm sure, as you will all be aware of already, we know that research tells us that if parents are involved in their child's learning, they're much more likely to do better in school. And so the campaign therefore aims to ensure that parents and carers are empowered to get involved in their child's learning and recognise the importance of this as well. So we know that schools obviously play a key role in this as well. And we want to make sure that they feel confident in kind of making the most out of the bags, and we feel like your roles when you're working with schools will make a really big difference to the supporting the Read Write Count campaign as well, and kind of where you fit in amongst that. So in addition to that, what does Read Write Count really aim to do then? We've kind of touched on it there, but basically, it wants to help parents and carers to be confident enough to be involved in their child's learning. We know that a lot of parents and carers do want to be involved in their child's learning, but they just don't really know where to start, or they just don't feel confident. So that's a really key aim of the campaign, and to understand why it's important that they're involved in their child's learning and how they can get involved. It's also another key aim is to connect families with schools and libraries as well, because we know there's a lot of, especially after the last couple of years, it's been really difficult for families to kind of re-engage with schools again, or schools to re-engage with families. So that's a big key aim of the campaign too. And ultimately, the kind of overarching aim is to help close the attainment gap between the most and least deprived, least advantaged children in Scotland. So the main part of the Read Write Count campaign is the gifting of the free bags that every Primary 2 and Primary 3 child in Scotland. So these are gift bags that are given to every child. Actually, we should mention the Primary 1 bag as well, which has got reading, writing and counting activities in it as well. So it's an extension of the BookBug programme. So that's the Primary 1, BookBug Primary 1 family bag. And that bag contains 3 books for children to enjoy, and then they can vote for their favourite as part of the vote for the BookBug Picture Book Prize. So we'll go through those books shortly. But all of these books contain a selection of books and materials and for writing and counting. And these materials have all been carefully selected. That's what Maggie will be doing at the moment, is just about to look at the books for next year, just as the bags for this year have gone out, the way the timeline works. So yeah, these have been carefully selected so that they're fun to use at home, but they can also be incorporated into activities at school, and to make sure that teachers and pupils can get the most out of them before they get gifted for them to take home. So first of all, this is the BookBug Picture Book Prize. So these are the books that are included in the Primary 1 family bag. So this is, as we say, this is a kind of extension of Read Write Count. It's a kind of transition from the BookBug programme that's focused on early years, and then that's their kind of free gift bag that they get in Primary 1. So it's good to acknowledge this as part of Read Write Count as well. So as we say, this contains 3 picture books that you can see here. These are the ones that are going to be included in this year's bag. First one is My First Book of Sea Creatures, which is by Zoe Ingram, and this is a non-fiction book, and it just introduces lots of different sea creatures with interesting facts and statistics and lovely colourful illustrations. Last couple of years we've had a non-fiction book in this bag as well, so you might be already thinking about how you can link in STEM there. Oh, sorry, I think someone's microphone's on. I think we've just got it there. Thank you. The second one is Scaredy Bat by Jonathan Mears, and illustrations by Anders Frang. And it's a lovely story about a bat who's afraid of the light and is teased by his siblings because of his fear. But determined to conquer this fear, he sets off on a quest and flies away alone to demonstrate how brave he can be. And this is really delightful and funny, and it just helps children explore fears, as well as being set in a kind of a natural setting with bats and their habitats. It's really lovely. And then Stuck Inside is the last book that's included in the bag, and that's all about Tilly, who has to stay inside while a huge storm rages, and Toby, her puppy, who has to stay inside as well because he's got a bit of a poorly paw. But frustrated by not being able to go outdoors, they both decide to come up with a plan to create lots of outdoor activities indoors, which they build and use to enjoy being active and having fun while confined in the house. So a lot of children might resonate with it quite a lot after the last couple of years, but hopefully in quite a positive way. So again, it kind of is all about taking the outdoor in, and all of the activities that you can do, just even if you can't go outside, how you can make the most of it being inside as well. So as part of this bag, there's also an activity book, coloured pencils, and the Read Write Count element is the magnetic whiteboard, numbers and dot patterns with a whiteboard pen. So that's where the kind of Read Write Count element comes into it. And secondly, what's in the P2 bag. So this is where more of the kind of Read Write Count focus bag materials. So as we say, these are the bags that will be going out to schools imminently over the next couple of months, so you can keep an eye out for them. The Primary 2 bag, it will have 2 picture books in it as well. So this year's ones are Out of Nowhere, which is a story of Beetle and Caterpillar, 2 close friends who love to spend time together and share a picnic every day until the day that Caterpillar goes missing. And Beetle sets out to try and find Caterpillar, but despite his best efforts, he is unable to do so. But when a familiar and beautiful butterfly appears, Beetle soon realizes that although she looks different, this is his good friend, and at least they can enjoy being together again. So that's a really nice one again, exploring friendship and transformation. But again, really lovely STEM links to the fact that the caterpillar turns into a butterfly, and all of the kind of science links with that as well. The Perfect Fit is the other picture book that's included, and that's written and illustrated by Naomi and James Jones. It's about a triangle which doesn't roll with like the circles or stack like the squares. And so she sets off to find some friends who are more like her. And when she does ultimately find other triangles, she's aware that there's still something missing. And by inviting all the state shapes to play together, she and they discover how much fun they can all have. And so how they fit together at the end, which is lovely. But again, linking in with shapes, lots of kind of mathematical language and properties that can be used there. So lots of lovely STEM links already to kind of start thinking about. The other items that are included in the bag are Shape Shuffle card game. This has coloured cards with shapes, so it's like circles, squares, triangles and hexagons, and numbers so that you can play matching and sorting games. It's very similar to Uno, so the children might be quite familiar with it already. The reverse side of the cards have talk it out conversation starters, because we know that children come home from school and you ask them how their day was and they say, oh yeah, it was fine, and then the parents ask, oh well, what did you do? And they go, nothing. So hopefully these act as like little icebreakers and ideal for generating conversations between adults and children. And there's also act it out cards as well, which are charade style cards, so that you can act out a character, an emotion or an activity, or all three if they want to challenge themselves. The other item that's included this year for the first time, which we're very excited about, is a tangram set, which has got 7 shapes in it. You can see on the slide there. It's got triangles, a square and a parallelogram, and they can be fitted together to form different patterns and shapes of animals, people and objects. And there's a sheet of images which comes with the tangram set to provide some inspiration for the kind of models that they can create. But again, we can talk about the properties of the shapes, the numbers of corners and sides that they have, mathematical language. There's lots of opportunities for further learning with that as well. There's also a pencil and an activity booklet that the children can take part in. So it's got pages all the way through with activities for the children to complete that are linked to the items in the bag as well. So in the P3 bag, we have, again, 2 storybooks. So it's a kind of similar structure to the P2 bag. The 2 picture books again. The 2 that are in here are The Story Thief, which is by Graham Carter. And this is all about a crime being committed where all the books in this little village have been stolen. They've gone missing overnight, and it's up to Olive to solve the mystery of the vanishing books. And this is a really colourful story. There's some of the illustrations are absolutely beautiful and amazing. And it's just a nice way of taking children on an exciting adventure to find the mysterious thief, who happens to be a huge optimist. You might see that from the front cover on the slide there. The power and value of stories and why people treasure them. Jeremy Worried About the Wind is the other book that's included, and that's by Pamela Butchart and Kate Hindley. And this is a story about a little boy called Jeremy who is a worrier, and he worries a lot about a lot of different things, but he mostly worries about the wind. Who can blame him? And his dear friend Maggie, and not Maggie that's here today, a different Maggie, has helped him to overcome his fears, and he discovers there's a world of adventure out there if you're willing to be a little bit brave. So as actually, I was saying, as we mentioned this, it would have been before everyone joined the session today, there are going to be readings of all of the stories available on our website of teachers and librarians reading these stories aloud. We can share these in a follow-up email, and these can be accessed by yourselves. They can be accessed in school or at home. So if anyone wants to access any online readings yourselves, there will be some on our website of these books being read, as well as videos of the items being used as well that you can share. And these are particularly useful for families who may have English as a second language, or maybe need additional support for helping their child become familiar with the stories. So the other materials that are included in the pack are a Beastie Battle card game. So this is basically Top Trumps. So it's all themed around animals and creatures that you can find in Scotland, some mythical, some real. So they're really, really fun. We've got little different characteristics for each creature and some facts to accompany it. And on the reverse, new for this year, is Search and See cards. And this is a game that involves challenges to find items in a kind of scavenger type search. So you can use some of the cards on this slide. So like pointy, flat, stripy, lots of different prompts to find different materials. And this is this would be great to play outside, but alternatively also really great for inside too, because there's so many different textures and so many different things that they can look for. So yeah, it's a really great active game, one that you can do with a whole class and get them really involved. There's also story cards in the deck with characters, settings and items to support creativity and storytelling. And there's also a tape measure, which we know is extremely popular. It's been in the bag for a couple of years now, but it's always really, really popular. You give kids a measuring tape when they want to just measure everything, which is great. Again, it's a nice opportunity to take learning outdoors as well, if that's something that you want to do as part of your STEM ambassador roles. And again, there's an activity booklet and a pencil for the children to use. So I mentioned at the start about learning resources. So as part of the Read Write Count campaign, obviously, we send these bags into schools, but we obviously don't want we want to make sure that everyone feels supported to be able to use the bags and to maximise their use throughout the year. So at Scottish Book Trust, we produce learning resources, which are all designed to help teachers and learning professionals and people such as yourselves to get the most out of the bags and to actually try out some activities beforehand. So with the nature of the distribution, it means that the bags arrive in the schools before they're to be gifted. Usually we recommend them to be gifted during Book Week Scotland, as that's quite a nice opportunity to make a big deal out of the gifting, but alternatively, it doesn't need to just be during Book Week Scotland, it can be whenever it suits the schools. And having learning resources means that they have activity ideas to use the bags beforehand. And we know that if they use the bags beforehand, before they've been gifted, it helps the children be more familiar with them, be excited about them, and they're more likely to use them when they go home. So these are the types of learning resources that we develop as part of that. So this is one for Jeremy for this year. And as you can see, we link to try and make it as cross-curricular as possible. So we'd link to all the areas, different areas of the curriculum and the different E's and O's included in that as well. So these are all just suggested learning opportunities that we've come up with, but it's good as a starting point, especially once you get the bags. It means you've got somewhere to go from. And then what we find is that usually people use it as a kind of jumping off point as well, and they end up using lots of their own activities as well. So there's learning resources for each of the books and the items in the bags. And this year we've actually got some new lesson plans, or lessons rather, I should say, PowerPoints, which go through each of the books with a series of lessons for learning professionals to use with their classes. And additionally, we've worked with RAISE, so Raising Attainment in Scottish Science Education. At Education Scotland, they've developed some specifically STEM linked resources on the books as well. So these are all going to be made available over the coming weeks as the bags start to go out into schools. But again, we can send you a follow-up email with all of the learning resources so that you can access them as well, because that's what they're there for. So please do, if you want to use them, please do, because that's what they're there for. So I've just touched on bag gifting a little bit there, but bag gifting is probably one of the main elements of the campaign as well. It might seem, initially, why is bag gifting so important? But actually holding a gifting event and making it really special for the children is what makes them more likely to use the bags in the future. It makes them more enthusiastic about the bags. It helps parents as well on how to use the resources, so inviting the parents in so that they can see the bags and see how they're to be used. It also helps to build that initial confidence with parents so that when they go home, they can really get the most out of the bags because they know what to expect and how to use the items. And also it strengthens that relationship between schools and parents as well. So we think that this could be a really great opportunity for yourselves to be involved in the gifting. We know when schools invite different people in to get involved in the gifting, that makes it so much more exciting for the children. You could, read one of the stories beforehand and then gift them their bags afterwards, and then when they realise everyone's got a copy of the book that you've just read to them, it just makes it so much more exciting for them. We've also seen instances where schools have kind of wrapped up the box that the bags are in and left it in the corner of the class and just let the children kind of look at it and go, what is that? What's in there? And then later on, the guest comes in like yourselves, the STEM ambassador or librarian, and they're the ones that present them to the bags to them. So it just makes it really exciting and helps build momentum around the bags as well. But as well as being involved in the gifting, it means that you can hopefully be involved in follow-up sessions and with Read Write Count as well. And it just helps them to make the most out of those learning opportunities with STEM through Read Write Count too. So as I say, the kind of role that we see that you potentially playing in with Read Write Count could be a really great supporting role for the schools, helping to create that link with learning outside of school as well with families. If schools are inviting families in, which hopefully they'll be able to do now after all of the restrictions over the last wee while, being able to get the families back in again, having you there, working with them, introducing STEM activities will help to create that link with learning outside school as well. Hopefully it'll give them the opportunity to provide a variety of resources for the children and families that support all of the campaign outcomes that we just covered. It'll inspire families to try out the bags at home as well. If you're giving them activity ideas that are fun and active and engaging, it means that they're so much more likely to use them at home. And as we say, supporting the gifting of bags and gift events can be a really simple but really effective way of maximising the use out of the bags. And now I'm going to pass over to Maggie, who's going to chat a little bit about the gifting events and the types of the gifting events that you might want to get involved with and how to work with schools on that.
Hi there. So I'll just give you some examples of some gifting events that we've had or that some schools have had, but these are really a great opportunity to make a big fuss about the bags. And I know that schools will be delighted, I think, to have someone come in to help gift. And what we've done this year is we've actually redesigned the box so it looks like a present, and it actually says on the box now, this is a gift. Because I was a teacher for a long, long time, and I know that these boxes quite often disappear when the secretary gets fed up with them at the front of the desk. So by making it really obvious these are gifts, hopefully these boxes will get to the right place and the children get all the excitement about them. So you as a STEM ambassador can play a good role in supporting the Read Write Count programme and getting involved with giftings in your local school if you can make that contact. There's no set way, we don't have rules, we've kind of left it open for schools to decide how they want to do the gifting. But here's some examples of successful gifting and events from previous years. So there's lovely pictures here from St Francis. They held a P1 to 3 book bug gifting event. They had a breakfast club and big book swap for children and adults. There was a showcase of children's work on the books and a book quiz. They made bookmarks. There was a reading mascot design, which I think is quite a clever thing. And then they had the gifting of book bags with information about the school and the reading challenge that they were taking part in. And they also made videos of the teachers introducing the bags and talking about how to use them at home for the parents who are able to attend these events. And this might sound obvious, but a lot of young parents, or not even young parents, a lot of parents sometimes don't have the confidence and they don't know how to teach, but they're not teaching the children. They think they have to teach, so they don't know how to play with their children in a way that's maybe going to help the child learn or just be fun. So the gifting event can give the parent confidence. And some of the feedback we've had shows that the parents feel much more confident after the event to go home and do the same activity with their children there. Milnathorpe Primary School created a reading cafe, which is a lovely one, and we've seen this again and again. And they invited parents into school for activities in numeracy and literacy and gifting again the bags. Pupils made book-themed treats and refreshments, and they planned all the decoration for the cafe around the books. And Gateside Primary made links with Beath Library, and children visited the library to receive their bags and enjoy using the resources. So you could also set up links with your local library and have follow-up sessions with the school linked to STEM activities. So the impact, we always do research and evaluate all our programmes, and quite clearly you can see there's been a great impact of the gifting. It shows that pupils are more likely engaged with learning and literacy and numeracy activities after receiving the bags, and that learning professionals reported better links with families and carers. Building on classwork and celebrating the book gifting are among the best ways of engaging with families. So 77% of learning professionals said that pupils were more enthusiastic. Again, and 77% of parents said the bags gave them new ideas and ways of doing this. So the enthusiasm and confidence raising in both pupils and parents is exactly what we want to support. And here's a lovely quote from a learning professional. It's always interesting to see that if we ask pupils to bring in a book from home, a few bring in the book they had from one of their bags. For some, I know this is the only way they have access to books. And it's wonderful to consider that through Scottish Book Trust, Book Bug, Read Write Count initiatives, every child in Scotland will have received 6 bags of books and resources by the time they're in primary 3. And I think that comes up to 15 books if you include the little books that they get in their baby box. So knowing that this is a universal offer makes it a perfect resource to tie in when it comes to STEM education. So looking more closely at perfect fit, this is obviously shape. So I'm not going to read what it says there, but here's just some obvious ideas that you can do with the perfect fit. But you might find something else, you might catch a link. I mean, I think there's a great opportunity to look at the environment and find shapes around us. What shapes are stronger than others? Why do we have house bricks that are square and rectangular, cubes? Why aren't they round? You know, all these different things. You could really go, well, you can go anywhere with this because it's a perfect book to have activities from. So we'll move on to the next one, because I think this is something you can look at. Out of nowhere, again, the transition from a caterpillar into a butterfly is really obvious. There's lovely things about friendship. The book itself is obviously, it's a beautifully illustrated book with just 2 colours, well, black and white and red, I suppose 3 colours. Even that itself could give you some links to different activities. And it's just, yeah, it's a really lovely book that helps children understand that we all go through change, and you could link that to your own personal change. And you could link it to all sorts of things in nature, a seed turning into a flower. So there's lots and lots of ideas in this that you can take from it. But the next slide is where I want you to have a think for yourself. So we've got 2 books here, Jeremy Worried About the Wind and The Story Thief. And you could think about the types of STEM activities that you could do related to these books. And what does the title tell you immediately? Who's the author? What do you think they're going to do about it? What do you think they're going to be about? Where are they set? What characters are in the books? And are there any themes that you can draw immediately from the title? But these are the kinds of questions you can also ask the children as part of an introduction to any session. Don't feel you need to delve right into the book. Take your time, look at the covers, look at the verse, talk about the author, talk about the spine and the pages, you know, just to get relaxed into your session. But also be selective on these 2 books. The Story Thief is an absolutely fantastic book, but STEM links aren't obviously, they're not immediately obvious, whereas Jeremy Worried About the Wind had loads of obvious links. So don't overthink it. You don't have to pick a book that's going to be tricky or difficult to find links. You know, make it easy on yourself. Find a book where the activities are really straightforward or obvious to take. And so the next slide is from Jeremy Worried About the Wind. This is from inside the book. Now, Curriculum for Excellence says that when we teach science, what we want to establish is the foundation for learning, nurture curiosity in the world and big ideas and science concepts, develop skills for learning, for life and work, the skills of scientific inquiry, develop and use the use of scientific language. So these things are in the benchmarks from science. So they want children to understand and control risks, recognise the impact science makes on our lives and the lives of others, the environment and on society. So I could keep going on because there's so much in there. But what do you think your visit is going to do, that half hour you're going to be in the class? Think back to your own school days and what stands out in your memory. And I can still remember as an ex-pupil from our high school came in to talk to us about a visit to the North Pole. And she must have only been 20 when she came back to high school to tell us about it. She'd done one of these expeditions. And a long time, many, many decades later, I can still remember her visit. So that short half-hour visit was really impactful. The memory is vivid and was influential in making me realise that the world was open and I could travel. So the sad fact for teachers is, like me as a teacher, it is your 1 hour visit that could have more of an impact on the children than a year's teaching. And I'm not exaggerating here. The children will remember your visit when you come in, and your enthusiasm and your passion, you will imprint on that child. Something will go into their brain and sometime later it might ignite. So let's look at these 2 images from Jeremy Worried About the Wind. And it would be for P3, so level 1 to ages 7 to 8. And I want you to think about the most obvious STEM activities that jump out, and I'd like to ask you to put them in the chat. So think though about not what a teacher would do, and as a kind of to help you with that, as class teacher, I would do measurement. I would measure the wind. Obviously that'd be a really easy thing. I'd make a flag because that'd be easy, and we'd fly them. We'd stick them on sticks and watch them flutter in the wind. We'd maybe make a paper windmill as well, which are you can get them quite easily on the internet. But we might also discuss which objects would fly in the wind, and we would generally, the wind we get here in the UK. But what I want you to think about is, what would you bring to this book from your own expertise? Perhaps, what do you know? What would you be passionate about? And just in the chat, we'll just share some ideas of any STEM related activities that you could bring in a class based on Jeremy. I know you don't have the whole book, so you've just got this picture here from, I mean, it's not the whole book, there are pirates in it at some point, but this, I think, is quite a nice one to look at. So we'll just give you a couple of minutes to type things in for us, and we'll maybe chat about any of them that come up. You're all very shy. There we go. Parachute games, yep, great. Windmill, yeah, that's, I like that. Now that's very wind power cars, the noise from wind makers. That's good. Wind makes, sorry, yep. Why things fly, yep. I like the windmill that generate electricity. Most primary teachers would never go near that, to be honest. Why wind can power turbines, birds and animals that use the wind. That's lovely. That's a lovely idea. It's quite a nice range of ideas you've given us there. Instruments, yep, wind instruments, that's lovely. What animals can fly? Windmill. Yep. I think certainly there, to be honest, electricity is one of those things that I don't know, is always difficult to teach in schools. Teachers tend to, oh, I don't know how I could do that. But also the flying, animals can fly, the instruments, there's lots of things there. All of those ideas are perfect and great. Yep, now there's your kite one. I was going to bring that up because my last teaching post, one of the things I did is I made kites with the P6 class, because I only had them 1 day a week, so I was doing outdoor learning. And when we flew the kites eventually, very few children had actually flown a kite. It was quite moving to see these children fly a kite who'd never flown a kite. And there's lots of really simple 1-page A4 straws, bit of string kites, and the design was so simple, you literally let them go and they flew. So it brings something to a school that a class teacher probably wouldn't come up with. So these are all lovely ideas, and as a teacher, someone coming in, I would just welcome all of these activities that you suggested there. And one of the things about the day, the kites, I do know that those children all went away and they'd remember that forever. So I can't underline enough how much your impact going into school as not the teacher to do an activity will have a really good impact. And that's what you're bringing. You're bringing your passion, you're bringing your experience, your ideas, and they are worth, they're just, you can't put a price on them. That's such a wonderful thing to bring to school. So now we're going to have, I think, 5 minutes just to let you all have a comfort break. We've whizzed through that. I didn't think we would get here quite this quickly. So if you'd like to take 5 minutes and come back, well, actually, it's just coming up on, yeah, we'll just roughly 5 minutes. We'll wait till you're all back. And maybe when you come back in the chat, you can let us know you're here, you're back. You could also, we'll nip out to the loo ourselves as well, but we'll also answer any questions if you want to put anything in the chat, or let us know you're back. So we'll just start the timer now, and we'll see you all back here in 5 minutes, if that is okay. Thank you. most of you will be back. It's quite a long time at the end of the day to go without not getting up, standing up, let you have a wee quick break. And we've kind of separated the presentation into a little bit about us and the books that we have this year. And the next bit's going to be a little bit more about using stories in your practice when you visit schools. And I was actually thinking there while we're out, another activity that I did with the P6, which actually matches Jeremy, was wind resistance, and we did it with just A4 paper, and we timed 2 people, got the A4 paper, and who could make it hit the ground quickest, obviously by shaping it. And it, there was no resources required other than bits of paper. We used scrap paper actually, and we had about an hour's madness and fun. And made a real mess of the class, but it was just a really simple activity. So you don't always need to have lots of resources. It can just be about using your imagination. So hopefully everyone will be back now. So we'll just start the second bit of this presentation, which is using stories in STEM. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, a bit of paper, never short of a bit of paper. It's when I was a kid, it was always wallpaper was a thing. If you could get the end of a roll of wallpaper, it was just like, oh, what you could do with that. So using stories in STEM, we remember things better when we create an emotional response, and that's why stories are so brilliant at engaging and captivating children in all sorts of subjects. A good story will engage, and the most reluctant learner will take part, and we have no shortage of good stories available to use. The most important thing, though, to consider above all else is you must love the book. So if you have any reservations or doubt, the children will literally smell it and they will know that you're not invested in this book. So if you like the book, the story and the themes, then you're more than halfway to a successful visit. Remember, you want to inspire, ignite curiosity and create a buzz around STEM. And the children may only take away a few facts, but the engagement and the enjoyment will last with them a lot longer. So that, you're not trying to teach them a huge amount of skill. You're igniting their interest. Really, that's what you're looking to do when you visit for a STEM activity. So the next bit we're going to look at is reading books aloud. Now, I don't do accents ever. And I have read thousands and thousands of books to children over the years, but I'm terrible at accents because no matter where in the world my accent starts off, it always ends up somewhere in the South Atlantic. So I just don't do accents. So you don't need to worry about things like that. Use your voice, your pitch, your tone, your volume and your rate. A really good thing when the kids are getting really loud is to get quieter and quieter and quieter, and they'll follow you. You don't have to do anything. You just take your voice down. Make it feel safe for them. The audience, you hopefully any visit you have to a school beforehand, they'll have told you if there's any issues or if there's anything you need to look out for. So make sure before you go, the teacher has let you know about anything like that. But it has to feel safe and secure for the class. Repetition is a brilliant thing in books. And also be flexible and ready to change what your ideas are once you're in there. I would like to just do a little short word on classics and be mindful of some older books. Think about inclusion and stereotypes. And equally, when considering a classic book, is there a more modern book that could do that story slightly better without causing any sort of possible hurt, or sometimes we know that older books might not always meet the standards we live by today. And when reading aloud, as I said, you don't have to do all the voices. If it's not your thing, don't worry about it. Just use speed or tone. And also, if you make a mistake, don't worry. Just keep going, and if it's appropriate, make a joke. Just have a laugh, have a stop and a space, and then, just take your time and not panic. So we're going to do a poll here because we didn't want to force it on you, but we only have, well, I don't think we're going to give you a choice really. And if you would like to hear Inch and Grub, you can put a thumbs up or a yes in the chat, and if we get enough of you, we will look at Inch and Grub. I'll read it to you. But if you don't want it, just say no, I want a tea, just go no. So put some messages, yes please, we've got the first one right in there, and let us know what you want if you'd like to hear Inch and Grub. And we will just do that next. Yeah, I think we can safely say, but I think what we'll do, it might be better if we maybe went through the next couple of slides and then, or should I read it first? What do you think? Go for it first. Okay, so I'm sorry that it's kind of, I don't know if you know Inch and Grub, and this was gifted last year in the P1 bag, and I can absolutely see why it was gifted. It's just the most, I mean, it's a fantastic book. So it's by Alistair Chisholm and David Roberts. And it's about these two cavemen. I don't know, maybe if I sit further away.
Would it be worth to stop sharing the screen and I can then pin your camera so everyone can see it?
There you go. Yay. Right. So here we go. Inch and Grub, you're all sitting nicely. So I'm going to pretend you're a primary class. So please excuse my teacher mode because I'm just going to sort of give you a little indication of a way of doing it. So you would go in, your teacher's probably said, sit down, and she's done all the nonsense that's there. And you go, hi, my name's Maggie. I'm going to tell you this fantastic story, and it's by a man called Alistair Chisholm and another friend called David Roberts, and they have written the book and illustrated it. And it's a caveman caper. You see? I don't think my hair's like that. I think I've got nicer hair than that. So are you all sitting comfortably? I'm going to read the story. And at the end, if you want, you can ask questions. But if you all sit nicely and comfortably, let's find out about Inch and Grub. There they are in their full hair mode. I like that. I think that's great. Oh, let's see, get the names right. This is Inch. And this is Grub. Grub looks a bit grim. Inch and Grub were cavemen. I'm going to have to do it this way. And they lived in caves. Inch's cave was nice, but Grub's cave was bigger. Me have bigger cave than you, said Grub. That make me the best. This made Inch cross. That's not fair, he said. Look, said Inch. Me have cave with water now. Me the best. But Grub rubbed two sticks together and made whoosh! Fire! It's quite, I would normally, it's a wee bit awkward trying to turn the pages, do excuse me. Well, you silly cavemen, sitting on the ground, said Inch, me have a chair. Oh, only a chair, sniffed Grub. Me have made a bed. Me have made a bed too, and walls. Me have a house, said Inch. Pah, said Grub. Me have built a castle. Me am Lord Grub. Me have bigger castle. Me have a castle and a tower, said Inch. Me am King Inch, and you bow now. Muttered Grub. Me have discovered horses, said Grub proudly. Me can ride horse very fast. Me have horse and carriage, said Inch. Carriage is old and silly, said Grub. Me have train. You have train? No, said Inch. Me have camel. Grub stamped his foot crossly. Room, shouted Inch. And me have shiny buildings, said Inch. Me have skyscrapers, very tall. Me have fancy boat, said Grub. And me have a radio. Me can't talk to you now. Me on the phone, said Inch. Me have a plane. Whoosh, shouted Grub. And I do love the way he's pulled his hair and the little mouses can't visit. Getting serious now. And so they went, collecting more and more stuff and forgetting all about their lovely old caves. Satellites and statuettes and submarines and superjets, until one day, "Me have silver-plated drinking straw," said Inch, and he placed it on the top of his tall tower of things. "Me have gold-plated drinking straw," said Grub, and he placed it on the top of his tall pile. The piles started to wobble. Something else lost. Oh, I missed the rocket. Not come back. "Ah," sneaked Inch, "your pile is wobbling." "Ah," sneered Grub, "your pile is wobbling." "Oh no," said Inch and Grub. And down crashed the piles. Down fell the straws. Down came the castles and the boats and the buildings and the rockets and the radios. Crash, bang! All down on Inch and Grub. "Oh," said Inch, holding his head. "Oh," said Grub. Inch looked around. "Oh, me have less dust," he said sadly. "Me think we's better in a cave." "Me too," said Grub. "This am all your fault," shouted Inch. "No," shouted Grub. "This am all your fault." And he stopped. "This," he said slowly, "am all our fault." Grub looked at Inch. Inch looked at Grub. Inch thought really hard. "Me have a rock," he said at last. "You want share rock?" "Yes," said Grub. And they sat on the rock together. The end. So that was a really odd reading because it's just, I've never read to a computer, but it's the best book. It's just such a lovely book. And, so I don't do voices. I can't do accents, so, and they get mixed up, but it doesn't matter. As long as you're enjoying reading the book, the children are going to enjoy it as well. And if you make a mistake, it's not it's fine. It's okay. Just keep going, just enjoy it. I would always recommend Inch and Grub. It's such a lovely book, but it doesn't have to be Inch and Grub. There's lots of books out there. So just, find your own way of doing it. If you never ever want to do accents, never do an accent, but you just enjoy the book. So how can you use your voice? So the next slide. So, pitch. Now, a little note about raising your voice. Sometimes if I'm going to tell a story where there's shouting, maybe you wouldn't shout, but even really loud, I would warn the children before, because you don't know what kind of might spark something off. What I quite often like to do sometimes is, if I know the book's sad, I might say, "Joe, I'm going to cry during this book." No, but I don't want you to cry. So you're setting them up for the story and make it a bit funny, and then they're ready for this if it's sad or it's frightening, or you might say that there's a really frightening bit of this book. So warn them where your pitch is going, let them know where your voice is going to change, and associate small with higher pitch. Like tiny wee thing, the mouse is going to speak like that, but a whale is going to speak like that kind of thing. And just adjust it to show growth. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, or the rain came down and the puddle, or the sun came out and the puddle got smaller and smaller and smaller. So it's easy enough to do that. And it's not the tone, of course, it's not how we say it. You can be really angry at someone, but you can be really happy at someone. It's just use your own voice and do it that way. My certain favourite was always crying. Kids loved that. And I used to pretend to blow my nose on the t-shirt, which was great until some of the kids started doing that, which is not so good. And look at the words on the page, capital letters. There's hints there how to read it. One of the things in this book, which is really nice, towards the end, when he lists all the things, and I just felt, you need to get faster, and boats and buildings and rockets and rackets, just keep going. And the children are like, they'll be drawn into that. And so then the next bit is volume and rate. So obviously we talked volume, pitch, you don't, you know, it's slightly, you know, slightly different. In volume, you can raise your voice, you can raise the pitch of your voice, but so varying the volume is good as well. It can create tension. And when you read a story, you don't need to say at the same volume as you go through. You can go up and down. And rates, obviously, we've talked about that as well. So where you're fast and slow and things get start to be fired out at the children. And so now, after reading your story and getting myself, oh, I feel like I want to be cuddle now. Usually when I tell a story, when the kids usually runs up and grabs you. That's the other thing, just want to mention quickly. When you go into school, find out from the teacher, you know, is one of the kids quite touchy-feely? Make sure you feel comfortable, make sure the teacher shares with you anything that might happen. And, you know, some of the younger kids just, you know, they just might like shiny shoes, they might like your trousers, they might like your belt, or they might look at your jewellery. Just make sure, you know, before the lesson, the teacher should give you as much information as possible to make you feel comfortable and to make the class feel comfortable, you know. So maybe definitely don't wear any sort of big jewellery, or you'll have like 7-6-year-olds around you trying to look at it. But, you know, make sure when you do go into a school, you get some information and you share some information with the teacher so that you know what to expect. And that does make things, because, you know, you just never know what you're going to get. You might get a spontaneous round of applause, or they might all run up and grab you and go, ah, that's great. So always speak to the class teacher if you can before you go in. So I'll hand back to Rachel now.
Okay, so yeah, hopefully you enjoyed that. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think Inch and Grub is a really, really good one as well, because there's so much to it as well. You know, it's all dialogue pretty much. There's only a little bit of narrative, and you can get quite fun with it. Like Maggie says, you can use voices if you want to use voices, but you don't have to. There's so much that you can just use with that dialogue. So it's a really, really good one. But also all of the STEM links that you have there with the inventions, with fire, with elements. There's so many links that you can make there. So hopefully that's given you a kind of quick overview of the kind of top tips on reading aloud. What we're going to talk a little bit now is using picture books. So we would always, you know, you can use a variety of different kinds of books, but we always find that using picture books can be perfect for engaging with children of all ages. So don't, you know, sometimes people feel like all picture books are for earlier student pupils, or they're maybe for first level, but actually you can use picture books for any age of child, and there's so much that you can use with them. So don't feel like, obviously we're talking about this in the context of kind of read, write, count more specifically, but if you are wanting to work with schools that have maybe got composite classes and they've got P4s in there, P5s, don't be deterred to use a picture book. There's so much that you can still do there, and every child can get a lot from hearing a story read aloud, even if it's a picture book. And also that it's really just a really accessible way of children to engage with stories, and by using this as a form of engaging with STEM, it's also really accessible. So yeah, using picture books is a really good place to start. But the most important thing is, I think, as Maggie already said, the most important thing to remember is to choose a book that is fun or exciting for you and the children. So it's something that you're interested in, it's something you're passionate about. Also, if you've had the opportunity to explore some books already, or if you're thinking from today that you might want to, you know, go out and get Inch and Grub, feel free to just practice reading them as well. Practice reading them aloud. Practice makes perfect. Don't worry about sounding silly or anything. It's all about confidence, and it's all about kind of getting started with that. No one feels confident right away when they first start reading books aloud. You know, even ourselves who work with books every day, it's still really difficult to kind of perform that book being read aloud. But the most important thing is that you're excited about it and you find it fun and you find it interesting. So choosing a variety of picture books will also help children develop a range of skills as well. So if they're like kind of learning and catching these concepts, it'll help them to read later. So again, it's a really accessible way for those children that maybe are more reluctant to read, or maybe have English as an additional language, or have, you know, are dealing with challenges at home. It's just a really great way of bringing the whole class together, bringing the whole session together, and helping it to have a structure as well. Reading the same book to children over and over again is also an important part of children catching up with these concepts. So again, if you've got a book that you think works really well and you've used it a couple of times, don't worry, that's good too. Don't be deterred in using the same book multiple times with the same classes, or if you're working with multiple schools. Don't worry about needing to have a variety. It's always good to have a variety for yourself, but if you feel like actually the kids are really enjoying this book, don't feel like you don't need to change that book. And the more familiar the child is with a story as well, the more they're able to shift their attention and they start picking up on the smaller details of the book as well. So something like Inch and Grub, you can revisit again and kind of go, oh, look, did you see the mouse on that page? I wonder if we see the mouse earlier on. I wonder if he makes an appearance. And so there's lots of different ways to find new things to revisit a book as well. But as I say, the most important part is to remember to choose a book that's fun or exciting for you, and pick one that you're excited and enthusiastic about. If you're enthused, the children will be as well. So how do we make books fun, and how do we link it back to STEM in this way? So as Maggie's just kind of demonstrated, look for ways for the children to join in. If they're able to participate in the story, it's more engaging for them. And then you've got a kind of jumping off point for your further STEM activities as well. So sounds as well, as Maggie says, don't worry about trying to give like the perfect performance or have voices or, try and do it in this really complicated way. Use the concepts that the books have and actually look for at least one of these concepts when you're looking at these books, because that will help you when you're reading them aloud. Sounds, books feature transport like Inch and Grub, with the whoosh and the crash and all of these things just naturally make you enunciate them and make it fun for the kids to take part in as well. You can get them to say whoosh, crash, all of these things. Dialogue or animals. One of the things that we've got here is a book, which was, these are all books that have been in the Read Write Count bags in previous years. So if you wanted to have a look back at resources and things, we'd be able to send them to you. There's Quick Quack Quentin, and probably a lot of you have heard of this already, which is about a duck that his quack is too quick, so it comes out quick. And that sounds great, and all the way through it, it's all about Quentin trying to find his A in his quack. He needs to find the A very, very quickly. But finding a spare one isn't easy. And all the way through it, Quentin is going through asking different animals, like, do you have an A that I could borrow? And they're saying, oh no, sorry, I'm a doctor. I've got DOCTOR. So then he goes to the farm because he thinks, okay, farm, that might have an A in it. And he goes and speaks to some animals with his quack that's missing its A. So for instance, he meets up with a dog and the dog says, oh, here, you can have my O. And he goes, oh, no, that's not quite right now. I'm saying quack instead of quack. So again, the sounds, much of the story is made up of using the quack sound or the quick sound all the way through. So again, he goes and meets a hen, and then the same thing happens. The hen says, oh yeah, of course you can have my E. And then he says, oh no, that's more of a quick. That's quick. That doesn't sound right. So again, and yeah, this is just how it goes. He gets an I from a pig, so it's now quick. And he gets a U from a cow, or bull rather, and goes quack. So use things like this, which have got lots of dialogue and lots of sound in them, because then you don't feel so much that you're reading a story. It's more just fun and it's engaging for the children. And as we say, you could also get the children, when you show them the pages and you're reading it to them, you could say, what does this say? And they can go quack, and they can do the sounds as well. And it just makes it really fun for them too. So as I say, this was one of the books that was included. I think this was in the first year of Read Write Count. So again, using those sounds to kind of pick up on and help yourself when you're reading the books aloud. Don't make it more complicated than it needs to be. It can be really fun. And as we say, all the books that are included in the Read Write Count bags should lend themselves to be read again and again in this way. They should be enjoyable for the children, should be enjoyable for you. And they're a really, really good place to start because they already have those kind of natural links to STEM, so many of them do. But as we say, there's lots of other books that you can look at as well, previous Read Write Count books and otherwise. The other thing to think about is actions as well. That's Maggie was doing as well. She demonstrated when she was shaking the book because the towers were about to fall down, or she whooshed the plane, the book goes with the plane. Some of the examples on here, again, you probably have heard of Monkey and Me, We're Going on a Bear Hunt by Michael Rosen. Again, if you feel free to go for ones that are quite familiar as well, if you've maybe used them before. Don't worry about not relying on the same books. It's obviously good to get a variety, but if there are books that you've used in the past that have worked really well, feel free to revisit them, or if you know ones that have worked particularly well for other people, then you can go to them too. In terms of movement, we've got The Knight Who Said No here, which is again another book that was included in Read Write Count, and this is all about a little knight called Ned who wakes up one day and he feels a little bit funny. I've had to show you the page that he that he wakes up on, because I think everyone's woken up one day and just felt a bit strange the next morning. You know, they feel something's happened overnight. I don't feel the same anymore. And there's little Ned there, just not looking quite right. He just feels a bit strange. Something's happened. He's feeling just a bit off. And then for the rest of the story, he decides to say no to everything. He's been very good before. He's always said yes. He's always helped with his chores. He's always helped his parents with whatever they've asked him. He's always said yes. And then after this strange night, he wakes up and he just starts saying no to everything. So this one's really good again for actions, because the no is so large and so bold and everything. You can be like, no, and you can stamp your feet like Maggie did. You can like slam your fists. You can be like, no, I don't want to do that. And again, you can get the children to take part, and all the way through it's like, yeah, Ned still felt all prickly, and so he answered, no, I won't do that. And then that says, well, that was just the start of it. The nose came thick and fast. And then all the way through, he starts to say no. But then he meets a dragon at the end. This is when the dragon appears, and again, whoosh. Suddenly Ned heard a whoosh and saw a flash of light. The dragon with her shiny teeth came soaring through the night. And again, using these sounds to just pick up on these elements of the story when you're reading them, that'll make it so much more engaging, so much more fun for the children. And yeah, getting them to do the actions as well wherever you can. Finally, the other thing to consider is repetition of a phrase, rhyming, rhythm, all of these things. Again, really prevalent in picture books. Again, so you know, that's why picture books can be really, really good for exploring STEM with stories in this way. We've got a couple of examples here, like Shark on the Park, Jack and the Plum Plum Tree, which are kind of, again, familiar favorites, but we're going to go back to a Read Write Count book. This is what I mean. These are all books that have been in the Read Write Count bags at some point, so hopefully they lend themselves really well for you. But this one's called You're Called What, by Kes Gray. Another Kes Gray. Kes Gray's featured quite a couple of times in the Read Write Count bags, and this is all about animals with silly names. They're all clued up at the Ministry of Silly Animal Names because they want to change their names. They're fed up of having silly animal name and they want to change it. And all the way through, it goes through each of the different animals that are queuing up in the queue to get their name changed. And they all ask, you know, they get to the counter and they get asked, why do you want to change your name? And you know, say, well, because I'm a cockapoo. And that sounds very silly. And then all of the animals go, ha, 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 laughed all the other animals with silly names. And then, you know, the cockapoo says, you see, whenever I say what sort of dog I am, everybody laughs. So all the way through, it kind of works its way through each of the animals, and each one getting sillier and sillier. Monkey face prickleback, ha, laughed all the other animals with silly names. Pink fairy armadillo, ha, 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 laughed all the other animals with silly names. So again, the repetition throughout this just shows how good all the animals laugh one after the other, about how silly their names are. And again, you can get the children to laugh, you can get them, you can, you know, trying to laugh is probably quite a funny thing to do as part of the dialogue. But again, you can get the children to participate. And as you go through, you can emphasize each name as it you know, repeats, you know, ice cream cone worm, a shovel nose guitar fish. It just gets more and more elaborate. And then at the end, the poor animal at the end is an aha wasp. And they're all like, ah, ha, 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 ha. And he says, no, not an aha, frowned the wasp, an aha wasp. And there he is. And that just sends all the animals you know, they can't cope. So it's like, ha 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 ha, you're actually called an aha wasp. But again, this is a really good one because, yeah, you know, for reading aloud, for the repetition of the phrase, but also there's so many animals in there that children might not have heard of, or you think, are these animals really real? Can they be real? And actually, yes, all of the animals in this are real, including the aha wasp at the end. And a lot of the Read Write Count books include a little bit of non-fiction elements to them as well, so that we can kind of make those links with STEM. But so at the end, there's fact files for all of the different animals that are included in the story. So that might be quite a fun thing as well. You know, Maggie was saying about asking the children questions at the very start. If you use something like this book, you could say, which animals in this do you think are real and which ones aren't? And then at the end, you can kind of reveal to them, actually, all of these animals are real. And yeah, they've got all of their fact files and things there too, which so it just makes really nice links with STEM already, but it's a really nice book to read aloud as well. So I think, yeah, being able to touch on in any of these concepts involving at least one in the books that you're picking or you're exploring will land you in really, really good stead. And as we say, yeah, these are all books that have been included in the Read Write Count bags before. So they're a really, really good place to start. So now I just wanted to show you again a selection of books that you can choose from and some of the kind of activity ideas that can come to mind. And then you can have a think about sharing the story with the children. Obviously, we've just heard Inch and Grub from Maggie. But as we say, reading books is a really great way of encouraging participation and interaction from these groups, especially if you're wanting to do those kind of follow-up sessions with STEM. And it's just a really positive experience for everyone involved. You know, hopefully it's going to be really positive for yourselves as well. And it's just a really nice way of creating those new learning opportunities for STEM. But as we say, it can be quite intimidating to do if you're not confident reading aloud, but you don't need to be super experienced to do it well. And as all the way through that, hopefully with those books as well, you'll find that your voice is the single most important tool when sharing a story. So these are, again, all books that have been included in the Read Write Count bags and the P1 bags in previous years. So what I'd like you to do in the chat, again, is to just, you know, kind of similarly to what you did with Jeremy Worried About the Wind, just looking at these front covers, what do you think the themes, the STEM themes might be for these books? They're all slightly different, they all look quite different, but can you kind of figure out what links to STEM there might be just from the front covers of these books? If we were in person, we'd probably have the books and you could have a wee look through them, but we thought we'll give you the covers, and I think hopefully you should manage okay. So yeah, if you just want to take a minute or two to pop in the chat what STEM links you think there might be. Oh, great. Yeah, someone's saying stars, ecology, space, look up making rockets, astronomy. Yep. That's really nice. Our world animals, how many legs insects have. And the bug collector, how many insects under a rock? Yeah, brilliant. Structures balancing loading from Inch and Grub. Yeah, that's a really good one actually. Yeah, when the towers start to fall. Day and night insects. Yeah, the differences between nocturnal and day animals, definitely. Yeah, that's great. All the women behind the moon landings include, that's really interesting because there's actually in Look Up there is some non-fiction facts in there. So Rocket, who is the on the cover there, the main character, she is obsessed with Mae Jemison, and she tells you all the way through it, like all of these facts, like, did you know that da 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 da, and did you know that Mae Jemison did this? And she basically wants to be an astronaut just like Mae Jemison. So there's really lovely links there with real life astronauts, yeah, women in STEM, but also just space in general, you know, space exploration, the stars, the thing that she's really, really excited. If you've not come across Look Up, all the way through it, she's trying to encourage people to come along and watch this meteor shower that's going to be taking place in the town. And no one's really interested. Her brother's looking at his phone, and you know, she's trying to hand out flyers and tell everyone about this exciting event that's happening. And at the end, you know, she's looking up and she can't see anything. It's very, you know, she's like, oh no, I've got everyone to come and there's nothing happening, and then all of a sudden a meteor shower appears, and it's like a double page spread of just all of these stars. It's really, really beautiful. But there's so much learning in there, you know, even just because it's a really good story, but also because you can do like space exploration and you know, astronauts, and even using your, you know, families using their phones as well. Like that's always been one that's interesting. Whenever we talk about Look Up, people see kind of children resonate with the fact that their families look at their phones quite a lot, and it's like, oh well, the impact of technology on our lives and how that's changed over time. So Look Up's a great one. Oh, this is great. Lots of kind of above water and below water, what floats. Yep. Space, materials, engineering, mini beasts. Yeah. Oh, habitats and food chains. Yeah, that's a really, really good one as well. Progression of inventions over time in Inch and Grub, definitely. Yeah, you can almost do like a timeline of all the inventions in Inch and Grub and where they appear and at what points in history they appear. Food chain, big fish eating smaller fish. Yep. Mammals eating smaller animals. Yep, definitely. So the kind of food cycle and the life cycle of animals, definitely. So this is absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing those in the chat there. Because this just shows, you know, you've heard Inch and Grub, you know, just briefly there being read aloud, but you've not actually seen any of these other books, and you've been able to pick up on some of the kind of key activities that you could do just from the front cover. So don't worry about not knowing like which books to go for, or not feeling confident, because you've just picked up on all of the themes that you could probably work with. So many different themes just from a front cover on a screen. So definitely start exploring picture books that, you know, if you're really interested in space, or if you've got a background in kind of space, then Look Up is probably a really, really good one. As we say, it's got non-fiction kind of put throughout it, but the story's also really good. It lends itself really well to being read aloud. And it's just really beautifully illustrated as well. The Bug Collector, as you can imagine, is about a little boy who's collecting bugs, but it's also about the relationship with his grandpa and the impact that him collecting the bugs has on the kind of natural ecosystem around him as well. Like when he realizes that he's made a bit of a mistake by collecting all of these bugs. Now the garden has no bugs in it, and the flowers aren't getting what they need, and the impact that has. So again, loads of opportunities for exploration on our kind of impact on the environment, but also different, you know, as someone's already said, I think in the chat, about the difference between day and night insects, how many insects you can find in our walk. So it can be really straightforward activities. It can just be like quick and easy ideas, but also it can take you that bit further. So there's probably quite a lot of learning opportunities that you can use for each of these books. And then either you can do kind of quick and easy ones as part of your sessions or gifting events, but then there's also the opportunity to do follow-ups as well. So if you want to go back to the school and reuse the book again and do some different activities, then there's loads of stuff that you can do with that. Above and Below is also a really, really nice one. I think Maggie's got it here. Oh, it's a slightly different one, but it's got flaps as well. Love a flap on the books, yeah, and it's just full of facts. So yeah, it's just beautifully illustrated as well. So thank you so much for taking part in the activity. But I hope that was more just to kind of show you that how you've already picked up on the things that you need to just from you looking at some front covers, and you're making those links already. So hopefully that was quite helpful, but it'll help you hopefully when you're looking at books and kind of exploring them, that to kind of give you that confidence that you can make those links quite easily just from the front covers. But also inviting the children to ask them what they think it'll be about and what they think will happen as part of the stories as well. So quite a good way to structure that session using the picture books. So yeah, that leads us on nicely into kind of introducing your session with the children. So, you know, using a book is a really, really good way of kind of structuring a STEM and literacy session, or STEM a story session, as some people call it. You can use the book as an introductory activity. Like we say, you can ask them questions. What do they think the book's going to be about? What do they think is going to happen? Can they tell anything that might be able to happen from the front cover? You know, I quite like doing that with Look Up as well, because they think, oh, maybe it's about space, or maybe it's about, like, there's a cat on the cover. How is the cat involved? And it's just, it gives the children that chance to start thinking about what they think might happen in the story, and then asking at the end, what you expect to happen? Did it go a different way than you were expecting? All of these things. So encouraging that questioning with the children is really good, and it helps you kind of settle into the session, get it structured, get them settled in. And also, yeah, as we say, link it in with your interests and themes again. So if there's particular STEM links that you want to make, pick a book that'll lend itself to that. Don't, as Maggie said about the Story Thief, don't try and make a link with a book if it's a little bit tenuous or you're not sure. Go for something that you're really interested in, and that'll transfer to the children as well. So yeah, think about your chosen book first and go from there. Don't try and fit a book into something that is separate. Think about what you want to do first, practice it, and then go from there, and then you'll be able to kind of structure the session around that. And as we say, there might be activities that lend themselves really easily, might be quick and easy ones, you know, whether that's making a kite or counting the insects, things like that, or you can go that little bit further and make it more of a kind of a bit more of a rich learning experience, but a bit more detail in there, more links to the curriculum. But as we say, fun and interactive activities make for really positive experiences. I'm sure you'll all know this already, but the more that you can make them active, make them, you know, make them get the children to be hands-on about it, get them into groups, get them into working together on the activities, that'll make for a really positive experience and make it so much more rich and meaningful for them as well. So again, this is just wanted to touch on another book that we're going to give you some book recommendations shortly, but we just wanted to touch on some further learning opportunities and the kinds of examples that we see schools using books for STEM as well. So this can hopefully give you a little bit of inspiration. This book is actually as well aimed at a little bit older, so this isn't a picture book. This is called Space Explorers, and it's 25 Extraordinary Stories of Space Exploration and Adventure, which is by Libby Jackson. And this example is actually from a school that came off the back of a virtual author event. So this was something that our team did at Scottish Book Trust. We run virtual author events and touring programs and things like that with authors all year round. We try and link these in with different themes. So this was linked on the theme of space. This was at the start of last year. So it was a virtual author event because we weren't able to go into schools at this point. But what happened was we took Libby Jackson on a virtual tour to schools, and it meant that we could beam her into schools and she could talk about the book, but also talk about her experience in the space industry. And basically this is all of these activities and all these learning opportunities were off the back of that event. So again, it just shows you, just from using one book, the kind of jumping off points that you can go to. So as I say, yeah, there was a lot of excitement and motivation from this author event and the Q&A that the children got to take part in as part of the event to go on and do some further learning. So the types of things they did, they used this book for, were creative writing. They wrote their own space stories. So they wrote it as like the perspective from like an astronaut or an alien, things like that. What they would be seeing in space, what they would be exploring. They made arts and crafts to make their own space creations as well. So that's on the photo there. They made rockets and planets and things like that. They researched space careers as well. So it's like, actually, how do you go about being an astronaut? Some of these stories included in this book were real life stories as well. You know, it's about kind of how astronauts, like what happens to them in space and things like that. So some of them were more fictional, some were non-fiction. So that gave them the opportunity to research, how do you actually go about being an astronaut? So again, it's like links in with developing the young workforce and you know, making those links with STEM there too. Exploring the NASA website. I'm sure if you are involved in kind of the space activities, you'll know about the NASA website already, but it's absolutely amazing. So if you were wanting to do some space activities, definitely explore the NASA website and the digital activities they do with the school. And it was really, well, one of the most valuable things about this was that it was engagement from reluctant readers and the whole class involvement. So it meant that those children that are maybe more keen readers and ones that are maybe a bit more reluctant, everyone was involved. So it shows you how accessible using books in this way to kind of create those STEM links can be. So finally, obviously, we would say that extending the story, once you've done this, it's all about extending the story. It doesn't stop there just because you've had a really good session and it's gone really well and you're making all of these lovely activities and things. The fun doesn't have to stop there, and it doesn't have to end when you've finished reading the book either. So there's so much more that you can do to keep children engaged with the story and to deepen their understanding. Using books to inspire play will help make stories more exciting and relevant for children, make it more meaningful for them, and also just help connect children with characters, thoughts, ideas, emotions, expand their knowledge and develop their thinking as well. So this is in turn all will encourage creativity and inspiration and all these things that we know are really integral to the curriculum. So whilst it's great to have some planned ideas, obviously we've kind of touched on the types of activities that you could do, and you've obviously come up with some of your own already. You could also observe the children and see what sparked their interest from the story as well. So there might be something that, totally random that comes up in the story, and that's actually what the children want to go ahead with. Get them to be involved and inspire the follow-up activities as well where you can too. That's something you can do with the class teacher as well. If you're going up for follow-up sessions with them, they can support you into making it a little bit child-led as well. But if you're wanting to start with familiar stories as well, you can always do things like fairy tales. We obviously want to encourage contemporary children's books wherever possible, but if you know stories that might work quite well as well, using like Three Little Pigs, Rapunzel, Jack and the Beanstalk, there's so many things that you can do with that. But I mean, you managed to come up with activities just from the book covers there, so I'm sure you'll all be grand. So in addition to these activity ideas and kind of book recommendations so far that we've given, we have a whole host of learning resources on the Scottish Book Trust website. So we could mention this in the first half about Read, Write, Count specific resources, but we also have lots and lots of other resources as well. It's not just for Read, Write, Count. So this also includes book lists, which we create for all ages and stages, and you can filter them by age and theme. So if you're looking for more STEM recommendations, book recommendations, we're going to give you some just in a minute now, but we have book lists specifically on STEM. So I'm pretty sure we have one that is for preschool children. We've also got one that's for school age. There's one for 6 to 8-year-olds and one for 9 to 11-year-olds as well. So here's a couple there just from the website, Tiny and How to Build a City, a couple of the recommendations that we include on the book list. So don't feel like you need to know today what books that you want to go out and buy. You can have a look at our website as well if there's ones that that you want to explore and just get an idea of what other ones are out there as well. These two are brilliant as well, The Invisible World of Microbes, and it's absolutely brilliant. It's such a great non-fiction picture book for exploring complex ideas. And then How to Build a City is a step-by-step guide on how to create a city and the things that you need to consider as part of doing that. Again, really, really good books that you can use for a whole host of activities. And so our learning resources are aimed at learning professionals, practitioners, and anyone working with children and young people to inspire a love of reading. So there's a variety of ideas on there. There's things like book projects, a bit more detail, a bit more interdisciplinarily, to quick activities to do with any book as well. So we've got a resource that's on 10 activities to do with any book. So these are designed so that it's any book that you're wanting to pick, you can use these activities for. So you can kind of explore the website and see what would work for you. We've also selected some on the slide that might be particularly of interest to you. So there's obviously the STEM resources that are developed by Raise. Those should be coming up in the next couple of weeks, but we'll send them over to you. Making a mini book resource as well. There might be quite nice ways of linking that in with some STEM themes, but that's just a video of showing you how to make a mini book with just a sheet of paper. And making your own sensory story as well, something to incorporate if you're doing kind of sensory activities as part of your STEM activities as well. But if you're also interested in some online author events, we obviously touched on the tour just there with that example, but we also have our Authors Live on Demand library, which is available. This has got a whole host of author events on. I think there's over 80 now, and they're all available to watch on demand. They're all available to watch for free. So there's the likes of Julia Donaldson, Michael Rosen, other picture book writers that are on there too. And these could be incorporated into activities for follow-on sessions as well. So if you're looking for something a little bit different, getting to hear from the writers themselves about maybe if you're using one of their books, then the Authors Live On Demand library is a really good one to have a look at. But we also link it in with kind of national days as well. So there's one for World Oceans Day with Jill Lewis, and things like that, and like World Environment Day and things like that. So be sure to have a wee look at that if it's something that you'd be interested in exploring. So now I'm just going to pass back over to Maggie, and she's going to talk through some of these recommendations that we just wanted to leave you with before we finish up today.
Hi, and I've just put the link in the chat for the 6 and 8-year-old and 9 to 11-year-old book lists from our website. So I was going, this page could have ended up being quite mad, so I've stuck to something, because this week I've been speaking to publishers, and these books were actually brought to my attention, and I had to look into them. And the first one, The Infinite Lives of Maisie Day by Chris Edge. Chris Edge apparently failed his science GSC or whatever they do in England, but he failed it, he didn't get it, and now all his books are science tilts. And apparently in this one they look at quantum physics, and I've had a wee look on the website, on his website, and it all looks fantastic. So I'm going to recommend that after speaking to the publisher this week. There's a whole range of them, and they all have just some different tie-in with science. And these other two are by Dr. Nick Crumpton, and Gavin Scott does the illustrations. And again, speaking to the publisher this week, the reason I picked these is the Dr. Nick Crumpton is adamant that things have to be correct. And in the Everything You Know About Dinosaurs is Wrong book, a young kid emailed him and said, did you know this about something that's been discovered about dinosaur eggs? And he demanded that the next print has that in it. So he's obviously really in touch with children. He wants to respond to children, and he wants to give them the best. And it's a lovely idea. It's that everything you know about mini beasts is wrong. You know, centipedes have 100 legs. Well, maybe not. And it's just a lovely attitude towards looking at facts. And of course, everyone loves a dinosaur. So it's not many recommendations there. It's only 3. But if you go to the website that we have, there are loads of books on the book list. So I've the links there in the chat for the 6 to 8-year-old and the 9 to 11-year-old. So there are lots of books out there, but these are direct links for you to look at. So that brings us to some key dates for you that are coming up in the next little while. In September, October, Read Write Count bags, actually I can tell you, starting the 5th of September, they will be delivered to schools. We didn't think that was going to happen because of the war in Ukraine and various difficulties. Everything didn't arrive at all this year until much later than it should have. So, but they are not going to be late to schools. They will be arriving to schools from September. And Book Week Scotland this year is the 14th to the 20th of November, and that's when we're hoping that the books will be gifted. So if you have a school that you're friends with, you've made contact with, or you'd like to make friends with, I think offering your services as the Santa of our gifting books would be a lovely way to get involved with the school. And I think they would be delighted to have someone come in and help gift the books. And so if there's anything you're thinking about, you'd like to put it in the chat and let us know. So we'll stay here for a little while. If you've got any questions, we'll answer them in the chat. We'd be delighted to hear from you. You can always find us, get in touch with us at readwriteCount@scottishbooktrust.com, or you can find us more directly on the website. Our email addresses are there. We're really open to helping, give you answer any questions you have, and we're always here for further advice. So if there's anything you'd like to ask us or tell us about today's meeting, if there's something you have any questions about today's presentation, please just pop it in the chat and let us know.
Thank you very much for that. While people are thinking of some questions, I just want to think about what next for the STEM ambassadors and how you can kind of get involved. I have loved this. I've texted my team who couldn't be here today to brag that they should have been here because it's been so good. I have so many ideas. I've been jotting them all down. So the STEM Ambassador Hub will be running activities for Book Week Scotland, which is one of the reasons that we wanted to run this training. So we'd really love it if you can get involved in that. So some of the things that we're thinking about doing is highlighting some of the STEM resources that we have for you to think about that you can use to school. So remember, we have physical resources. We also got thousands of activities on the STEM Learning website that you can use. And I just want to say that, remember, you don't have to think of something new. So Book Trust Scotland, the Scottish Book Trust have clearly got loads of amazing resources. And for you to go in and deliver them, the fact that you're a STEM ambassador, you're someone new, you're coming from a different perspective, that adds so much value. So you don't necessarily have to think of something brand new. If you have things, absolutely. But it'd be great to get you involved. What we're going to do is we're going to put together a bit of a program of activities which we'll promote to schools, so we can help reach out to schools on your behalf, and we can say things like, would you be interested in ambassadors coming along and being involved in the book gifting? We're also hoping to run some live online readings of the Read Write Count books during the week. So these would be something that we schedule with an ambassador, and we would offer them to schools in Scotland. So if you're interested in that, what it would involve is you doing a bit of a reading and then maybe talking about how you linked that, or if there's an activity you want to talk them through. I know that we have some STEM ambassadors. I'm not going to make them, I'm not going to spotlight them, but do some really great activities online, and the class can join in. So if that's something you're interested in doing, please let me know, and I'll email everyone after this. Also, a big thing is offers. So I'll send information about how to get involved with this, but remember, there is a part of the database where you as a STEM ambassador can place an offer to say what you're available to do. So this could be a really nice way for you to say you're available to come and do a talk during Book Week Scotland. So perhaps you can go in and read some of the books, or go in and do a talk linked to it. So if you get an offer up on the database, we can actually advertise that specifically to schools as part of advertisement of what we're going to do for Book Week. So yeah, I have lots of ideas I'm going to kind of put together into a bit of a plan. But if you, like me, are as enthused, and I imagine you all are, it'd be really great to get you involved in this and thinking about how you can directly support Book Week and beyond. Also, just a note, if you would like to do a book reading or access any of the books, but maybe accessing them or buying them books is a challenge for you, please just let us know. We have our STEM Lending Library, but we can also support you if you would like to be involved, but buying them is not an option for you, so we can help with that. And I can see lots of questions coming in. I have a quick question, and then I will hand over to everyone in the chat. For our ambassadors, can they say they identify a book that links to that they want to do something with? Can they just choose to like take that into a school and do a reading? Do they need permissions, or the fact that it's something local, is that okay without sort of any additional approval?
Yeah, that's fine. If so if you like you say, if you find a book that you think, oh, I really like this, I'd like to, use that in a school, that's absolutely fine. There's no restrictions on, like, in terms of like copyright and things, on doing like closed sessions with schools, especially from from an educational point of view. So for publishers, it's more if you're kind of making money from it, or you're commercializing it without their permission, that's when they kind of come into issue. So if you're charging for the sessions, then they would probably be a bit like, oh, okay. But if you're going to school just with a book to read it to them and do it with like some activities, that's absolutely fine. So you don't need to worry about that from like a copyright perspective.
Okay, great. And I would love to hear any ambassadors who've got any of the book recommendations. I'd love to highlight these to other ambassadors. I'm just having a look at the questions. I see Anne's put something about the structures workshops from doing in libraries. Anne was the person I was thinking about. I think Anne probably knew that's who I was talking about. She's done some amazing workshops in the library, so I can imagine there's lots of books you can link that in. Kenny's asked if the books are available in libraries. I imagine a lot of these will be.
Yeah, I've put said that in the chat.
yeah.
If a library doesn't actually have the book, they will be able to source the book for them. Because these books are all still, well, some of the older ones, no, they probably should all still be in print, and certainly libraries should have them. And I noticed today, so I was asking about the ideas from the chat. I think you, as the host, would you have access to today's chat and be able to produce that for them?
Yeah, I'll make sure that because I also want a copy of the ideas in the chat. So I'll make sure we can do that, and I'll send an email around afterwards. Some of the things that come up. So we've just created some new activities as part of a different project. But we have one on the women behind the moon landings. We've got a new one that's all about discovering new species and the food cycle, and kind of being your own scientific illustrator and like what would a species look like and how they're like categorized. So we've got some new activities that are suitable for ages P1 to P4, and they're all little mini ones that you can build up, and they've been designed in a storytelling way, so you learn about these STEM ideas by kind of following a story. So that would link perfectly if there was a book that you could think of that you could then do these activities through as well. So we have lots and lots of things that we can kind of help and direct you to. So if you're stuck and you want to get involved but not sure how, please just drop us a message and we can help. Is there any other questions?
We should say as well, I suppose we touched on this with the book recommendations, but if you are stuck, like as Kerry says, if you really want to link in with a particular book and you just can't find one, or you've got a particular subject that we'd really like to explore with some books, please do just get in touch with us and ask. We always love a challenge. I say this. One year we had schools getting in touch asking, when the Olympics was on, books that linked to the Olympics or had like athletes in them, and that was like, oh, okay, that's a bit of a challenge, but we do like that. So please do get in touch with us if you do need a recommendation on a particular subject or theme, and we'll do our very best to help. We should say as well that all of the books on our website that we recommend as part of our book list we've read as well, so you don't need to worry about like the content or anything like that, or like what age they're pitched at. We've tried and tested all of the books that are included as book lists on our website, so you can be rest assured that that they're aimed at the right age and they're tried and tested. We wouldn't recommend them if we didn't think they were suitable. So yeah, please do get in touch if we can help at all.
And I don't work for any particular bookshop, or I'm not paid by any bookshop, but I know that your local bookshop, they're always great for recommendation. I was in looking for some children's books recently, and they are so familiar. So and they also like a challenge as well, and I imagine your librarians will as well. So if you go in looking for something specific, and what I really love is that it doesn't need to be a really literal, I know about I'm an electrical engineer, I now need a book about electricity. It could be the one where they were catching like fireflies, and you could talk about like connect it that way. So I really love that it could be a really, really direct link, or it can be something just to spark a conversation. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. I think so what I'll do is I'm going to say I'll send an email out and we'll have a think about how we can get you all involved in something, and I'll send out some next steps to kind of get you keep this kind of enthusiasm going. But we'll definitely be having a program of activities for Book Week, and I really love the fact that we can kind of connect you as STEM ambassadors and STEM into finding literacy links as well. I love the book recommendations coming out as well. Is there any other questions? No? I'm sure we're finished early, but I'm sure if you have a question that you'd like to ask but didn't want to ask in front of everyone, that will be around for a little bit, so you can stay on towards the end if you wanted to ask that. But otherwise, thank you very much everyone for coming. And as I said, I will be in touch because I'm very excited. So I've got lots of ideas. Thank you very much, everyone.